How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. We are live with Jason Caplan and Gidon Ariel. This
Gidon.
is the this is the second time we're meeting. I don't remember if I'm sure that by the time that this meeting will be publicized, then
Good morning.
our previous 1 second. I always forget to turn that off.
Oh, yeah. With the live stream, no problem.
Our previous meeting will have been published by the time this will be published. I'm
Great.
not sure yet when that will be or when this will be, but that's the magic of high tech and publication and stuff like that. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Baruch Hashem. How are you?
Thank God. Are you still out of your regular place of being?
Yeah, I'm trying to let you see the mountains here. We're out in the Virginia mountains, but it's really just so bright out there. I'll have to work on the camera there. I was hoping it would come through, but really pretty place, Blue Ridge Mountains for 4th of July. Celebrate America.
Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River.
Exactly. This is exactly where we are.
Almost heaven. But this, I'm in heaven over here. This is the land of Israel.
That's absolutely true.
Anyway, yeah. So what I did, this is my actual backyard,
Yes.
but I took a picture of it because of exactly the problem that you're seeing right now.
It's really just too bright. I'm gonna just kind of do a filter and try and get that out.
Oh wow, high tech.
Yeah, I don't know if I just blurred, maybe you'll just be able to see me better or something. No? Anyways,
It doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make
yeah,
a difference.
turn that off. So I really enjoyed the first meeting, and I'm really excited about the second discussion.
I think our first meeting, it was I think all of a week ago, but a lot has happened to me at least since then.
Hmm.
So it's hard to remember without reviewing it. I think we simply discussed, I simply talked a little bit about how I got to being where I am in Root Source and in my building and enjoying relationships with pro-Israel Christians.
Hmm.
And you told a little bit about your story about how you ended up where you are in with jazz and all the great jazz greats of the
Hmm.
world,
Hmm.
and how you're building a connection with between jazz and Torah, I guess.
Correct. Exactly right.
I don't think we talked too much about that in the last time. And let's see how much time we have this time before we because I'm back to backs here today. Yeah, we have at most 45 minutes, but we can do a little less than that also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great. Half an hour, 45 minutes is great.
Right, that's what I usually like to do. So usually I schedule for half an hour, but I don't schedule anything after it, so that if it goes a little longer, good. And if sometimes the talks take less than that, that's certainly we have enough time for that. So tell me a little bit more, or tell me about after you figure out where you are. This backyard. If you're inside, you have also there as well.
Thank you.
You called it Beit Abulafia, and it also had another name.
Yeah, I call it the Universal Language Room and Beit Abulafia. So chronologically, I started with the concept of the Universal Language Room. I think we talked a little bit about Dave Liebman on the last call, the great saxophonist. And he was giving a concert at this Washington Heights Synagogue, the Bridge Shul in New York City, where I was living. And I wanted to join him while he was performing, but of course you don't do that. So I said, well, what if you would do that, and we could have something called a Universal Language Room? So I really envision a synagogue or any house of worship where people in their particular mode worship God, which is not accessible to other people, and shouldn't be. But at least there would be a room to the side or another room called the Universal Language Room where anybody of any faith or even no faith would come in and commune through music, and there would be a universal room within the house of God for me davening shachris, but then also meeting people of different faiths through music. So that was the original idea.
And what was the name of that musician?
David Liebman, Liebman.
Yes.
He started with Miles Davis. He started with Elvin Jones, actually, before Miles Davis. And then from there, it's launched the most amazing career and a huge educator of jazz. So I study his works, and then I got to meet him. I got to stay friends with him, actually, for the past 20 years. But from there, I started developing this concept, and I started thinking this is really something. And people would say, "Oh, it's just a drum circle." I was like, "No, no, no, it's much more than a drum circle." And I thought, here's my first test. When people just say, it's just it's just a this," and I say, "No, I don't think so. I'm going to stick with this." So I formed a nonprofit called the Bridge Institute because I felt that the universal language would bridge gaps between
Wow.
people. Yep. And you see that language a lot now. You see people talk about building bridges and being big bridge builders. I happened to live next to the George Washington Bridge back in 2003. So I just thought, hey, this is perfect. It was the right imagery for me at the time. So I worked on it for many years. And in 2018 and 19, I started studying Abulafia. Just because I remember hearing about his meditation system. I was very interested in his ideas, but I really didn't know what he was talking about. Actually, I have his book here, his Sefer. This is the main one most people talk about. This is Or HaSeichel. And
Oh my. One second.
yeah,
Rabbi Abraham Abulafia, Zecher Tzadik L'Chei Olam Haba. So this, of course, is in Hebrew. Or HaSeichel means the light of the mind,
yes,
and Shomer Mitzvah means the keeper of the commandment. So I've never heard of this specific book, but now you will tell us all about it. And this is a book written by Rabbi Abraham Abulafia of blessed memory, and which was written when? In the 1800s, 1600s, 1400s?
late 1200s.
Wow.
Yeah,
1200s.
yeah, and it's probably been underground for about 800 years. He was not. Let's just say that what you think about with the Baal Shem Tov and the Vilna Gaon and the Hasidic yeshiva disagreement when it first came out, that's really started even further back with Abulafia, and the Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo Ibn Aderet, was not really keen on Abulafia. I'm putting it in a nice way, and Abulafia was the first person to teach Kabbalah in public. We think, oh, I'll just hit Kabbalah.org or look up Kabbalah on Google and I'll be able to access this. And back then, 800 years ago, the rabbis thought, you're not going to be teaching this in public. This is not for the public. And they had very good reasons to say that. But when he started teaching in public, he received a tremendous amount of pushback.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So his writings went underground for about 800 years with just certain people keeping his copies. Even Chaim Vital, the great Rabbi Chaim Vital, in his book Shari Kedusha. Now, and for the listeners, Rabbi Chaim Vital was a student of the Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria. So these are our great Kabbalists. Even
they haven't heard of Isaac Luria either. So
exactly. Okay, so this is in Sfat in northern Israel. These great rabbis gathered and really developed Kabbalah in a whole new way. There's always Kabbalah before, but they developed it in a whole new way. But anyways,
and what century was that?
1600s. Before Chassidut, and in the 1600s was the Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, Rabbi Isaac Luria, Rabbi Chaim Vital, Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, who wrote the Lecha Dodi that we sing on Friday night.
And that was 400 or 300 or 400 years after Abulafia.
Yes. So what happens is Rabbi Moshe Cordovero copies big portions of the Or HaSeichel in his Pardes Rimonim, without really mentioning Abulafia by name. But someone who mentioned Abulafia by name was Rabbi Chaim Vital in his very famous book Shari Kedusha in chapter 4. Now guess what chapter of his book was censored for about 400 years? Chapter 4. Yeah, it was not published with his book. Only recently do we have chapter 4 available to public. I'm sure academics had it, but so Rabbi Chaim Vital says some of the great wisdom comes from Rabbi Abraham Abulafia. I have a copy of the book. And a lot of publishers would not even publish if you mentioned his name. So
400 years later, they were still worried about him.
Yeah. And until recently, there's a Rabbi Amnon Gross who started publishing these blue books of Abulafia, but that's only been in the past, I think, 10 or 15 years. Quite amazing.
So wait a second. This book that you just showed, this blue book,
yeah,
it was published from a handwritten manuscript, an 800-year-old manuscript.
I'll have to get the full story, but yeah, I think so. Gershom Shalom had access to it. Moshe Idel had access to it, and they would write in their academic journals about it, but the public didn't. I mean, there was no way the public had access to it. It's a very recent thing, and it's amazing how it lines up with my life because I was, as I mentioned in the first segment, that I I studied Chabad and Breslov and Rav Kook, and I do appreciate the depth and wisdom of it. But my soul, my neshama, said, I'm still looking for something else. I'm still looking for something else that makes me feel really, like I said, like a light bulb goes off. So when I started studying Abulafia, I would see, and I'm gonna show it to you. I'm gonna show the audience. Let's see if my camera can pick it up. I just made these cards. These are Abulafia meditation cards. I might have shown this on the first one. My memory isn't great from last week.
No. We discussed it beforehand. Okay, so
Yeah,
what we see here, let me tell you what we can see. Maybe I'll, you know what, just 1 second. Let me put this view
yeah,
as the speaker to get it even a little bit bigger.
sure.
Oh boy. So what we have, oh, but then I have, say, 1 second. We will pin you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So what we've got over here is this looks like a printout of page 49 of a book. I see the Memtet in the corner. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Shari Tzedek was a student of Abulafia, so this is a student book, and he's writing out
Okay.
the chart of permutation. So you'll see, they say, start with, where am I? There's just one
Start with
letter.
an aleph, and the aleph is the first letter, and then the second line is A B B A, and then you
Yeah.
have the next permutations with the third letter, not the C but the gimel. So that's again, it's the factorial is 6 different ways of arranging the 3 letters of aleph, bet, and gimel,
Right.
and then you have the 24 ways of setting out the aleph, bet, gimel, daled. So why does it appear? And then you have 5 ways,
Yes.
which is 100. Wait a second. If it's 24 ways for 4 letters,
Times
it
5.
is 125. How many different ways is there?
120. So here's the full 120 on the back.
So wait a second.
Yeah.
No. At the last line over there is the first group of the
Right.
120. So that's like 4 times, that's 20. So it's 120 is 6 times 20. And now you have so it's 5 times. That's
Well,
25.
it's 6 across. Let me see.
24.
Yeah. 24 times
Right,
5.
so
It should be.
So it's 24 times 5. That's 100
and 20.
whatever.
Yep. Exactly.
So did he continue on to a vav, or that was enough?
Yes. There's a permutation of Bereshit, which is very beautiful.
Bereshit Bereshit is the first word of the Bible in the beginning in Hebrew.
Yes.
And that word has 6 letters, Bereshit. Bet, Resh, Aleph, Shid, Yud, So he permutated all of those 6 letters, but the what you showed us here is the Aleph and then the Bet, the Aleph and the Aleph Bet and the Aleph Bet Gimel, and the 4th one is also Aleph Bet Gimel Daled, right?
Exactly.
But
So I really stick with this.
Is the 5th also Aleph Bet Gimel Daled, or is it also a word?
It's Elohim.
Elohim. So Elohim is the name, one of the names of God. That is Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. Those are 5 letters. Elohim, I think, is often translated as Lord, perhaps.
Yeah, judge or Lord, or it could be judges a lot of times.
I don't think that the name Elohim is translated as judge. It however means in a different way of looking at it. That's not the right way to say it. It's the judgment. It's the judgment aspect of God.
Very well said. Very well said. Yes. I think Elohim. There were judges in Bereshit, which it's mentioned in a human term, but when we say it, we do mean God in His judging aspect.
Right. Not only in the book of Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, but for sure in the book of Psalms, we might have. It says, "B'kerev Elohim yishpot." God will judge among the judges.
Yes, very good. Excellent. So those are your examples of 5-letter, 6-letter, 4-letter words. And so if you look at that, and if you can imagine me in my room studying this and saying, "This is a meditation, I don't understand," And what happened was I put that book down, and I picked up a book by Jerry Bergonzi, a saxophone player. And he said, what I want you to do is take 4 notes and just practice them in all their 24 permutations. And that light bulb that I was looking for went off. I said, practice it in 24 permutation. Where did I just read that? And I went back to the book and I put them side by side, and it was a perfect, absolute match. Jerry had the same chart.
Have you got your guitar nearby? Because you showed us how you showed me it before how to do that.
I do.
Your
I left it in the room over there. I think if I take a second to go grab it, I can do that.
Sure, please do, please do.
Okay, let me go grab it. I'll be right back.
Wow. So we're about to hear the 24 permutations of 4 notes that Jason was told to practice by a jazz mentor of his.
Exactly.
What is the name of that mentor?
Look up Jerry Bergonzi, Bergonzi. And Jerry has a book called Melodic Structures. It's the second of a series of books. I think it's the second of 6 books called Melodic Structures. And in there, it's the exact match to Abulafia.
Now, one second. This Jerry Bergonzi, B as in brittle or V as in victory?
B.
Jerry Bergonzi. So he's not a Jewish Kabbalist, is he?
Oh, no. He's just a fantastic, highest level saxophone player. Spiritual
Wow.
guy. He talks about the spirit and the soul and things like that. So I mean, he's on the wavelength, of course. But
music is a very spiritual study.
incredibly.
Okay, so show us how Jerry Bergonzi told you to do.
Yeah. So this was in his book too. I actually have not met him. I would love to meet him, and just tell him thank you. So can you hear this? All right, and I got the bar up. So let me just make sure I'm in tune. There we go. So I'm just going to tilt this a little bit. There you go. So as I said, there's 4 notes, and if you play these 4 notes, let's say I'm in C, and you can play the white keys on your piano, C, D, E, F, right? So the way I practice these 4 notes is those 4 notes have 24 total combinations, and I'll just do line 1. If you're picturing line 1, I do. So if we're looking back this, I'll hold this up. If we're looking at this, I'm just doing line. I'm doing the top line.
6 permutations out of 4 lines of 6, so that makes 24.
Exactly.
So wait a second. Would you please play all 24? It won't take too long.
Oh, to play all 24, it would take a little while. But I'll do like what happens is you do Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Aleph, Bet, Daled, Gimel, Aleph, Gimel, Bet, Daled, Aleph, Gimel, Daled, Bet, Aleph, Daled, Gimel, Bet, Aleph, Daled, Bet, Gimel, right? And then you start on Bet, Bet, Aleph, Gimel, Daled, Bet, Aleph, Daled, Gimel, and you practice all 4. So it's a warm up. So what happens is I do the warm up, and then I move it up 1 note. Let's say I do the same thing, but I start on the note D. So I use another set of 4. And I do all those 24. Maybe I start on E. So what happens is as you do all that, you start to feel the combinations, and then at some point you let go. And so then you just try to, in a sense, get into the stream of consciousness and then let it take off. So it'd be kind of like this. And then I'd put a rhythm to it that I like. So I'd go. Now, I can't tell you that I would really have played that 2 years ago because I could not get into that kind of stream of consciousness before Abulafia. And that's my big breakthrough, is that my playing went from here to like here because I learned jazz through Abulafia. I mean, how many people can say that?
Not enough yet, but when you will, when hopefully you'll get more and more people into it, it'll be the Abulafian jazz method. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I've always wanted to play this music. Now, I've always played blues and rock, and I've always loved it. But to be able to really play jazz, I found it impossible. I just couldn't. I was like, this doesn't sound right to me. And so I studied the method. I'll mention 2 methods here, just because I want to give them credit. I want to quote my rabbis in the world of jazz.
Sure.
Mike Longo was the piano player for Dizzy Gillespie, and I actually met him in New York and took a lesson. And he has an amazing approach to studying jazz rhythm, which opened up my mind. And then there's a gentleman, Barry Harris, who also lives in New York City. I've studied with his students. But those 2 methods plus Abulafia, I hope, God willing, Hashem will let me teach it to the world.
Are they both still alive, or either of them?
They both passed recently. Mike actually and Dizzy Gillespie both became Baha'is. Of course, we know the Baha'is have a main center in Israel, in Haifa,
Yes.
and so there was a very beautiful spiritual approach with Mike and Dizzy. But Mike unfortunately passed during COVID. Um, and then Barry Harris also has a very spiritual approach. He talks about the notes and how the notes, our 12 notes, is really God's first, communication, the 12 notes, and then breaks down to 6 and 6, which is man and woman. He has a whole beautiful, a very spiritual group of people. It's amazing. So,
That
but
is
Barry
amazing.
passed of older age recently, I think last year. But I hope to help keep, in my own way, keep the flame of their teachings alive. But Abu Afi helped me understand what they were saying because I was aware of what they said, but I couldn't break it.
I have to say that I'm not. Just 1 second. I'm not a jazz musician. I'm not much even of an aficionado, but what you're saying sounds so interesting that it really makes a connection. I mean, I like music. I'm not a bah humbug kind of guy as far as music is
Right,
concerned, but
right.
the idea of bringing and of course Judaism does again, when I say Judaism, I mean traditional the Judaism that I'm familiar with
Yes.
has a lot of musical aspects in it. What first comes to mind, 1 second, let me put this back here. What
Right.
first comes to mind is the singing that we do in the synagogue. Now, we don't bring musical instruments into traditional synagogues. I believe, from what I understand, it's because the
Mhm.
non-traditional Judaism adopted music in the synagogue. That probably happened in the beginning of Reform Judaism back 200 years ago. And they did it, again, according to the way I understand it, is because they saw churches bringing music into the musical instruments into the synagogue. And so the pushback from Reform Judaism, the Orthodox Judaism says, no, you can't have musical instruments in the synagogue. But the fact is that there were musical instruments in the greatest synagogue, in the great temple in Jerusalem, because that's what the Levites would play. So
Yes.
that's something that happens a lot in Judaism, in that you had what the right thing to do, and then that got a little bit mixed up, and then people said it's definitely the wrong thing to do. Today, it's starting to come back. People are starting to dive deeper into what was, and we're coming back. It says in the book of Lamentations, a famous verse, which doesn't sound like much of a Lamentations. It's bring our days back to the way that they were. Chadesh yameinu kikedem, bring our days back as they were. And that is something that we pray every time we read the Torah. We bring the Torah back into its holy ark with that verse. And I'm sure that we do it other times as well. In any case, besides the beautiful music of the temple, we think also at the Shabbat table, we sing again without musical instruments, but we sing the beautiful songs. Many of them were written by those Kabbalists in Sfat that you mentioned earlier as
Yes.
well. And now, I think that Jewish music is growing tremendously. If you just look up Jewish music on Google or on YouTube, then you'll see it's really exploding today. And what you're doing though is bringing really I can only say specialized music. I think that people have heard of the Beatles, and today Tyler Swift. I don't even know,
Yeah, I
but
got
these
it.
billion people get billions of views on YouTube. But I'm sure that that the great jazz people get millions and tens of millions of views on YouTube. But people who aren't jazz aficionados have never heard of them. But you're
That's
bringing
correct.
something like that in, where and certainly most people have not heard of the great Jewish musicians. So you're
Correct.
taking two very special things that the jazz aficionados will say that that's something very special and very spiritual, and of course the Jewish music people will say that that's something very special in music, and you're bringing it together. That is just amazing, and I'm blessing you that you'll be able to do it more and more. What can I say? I'm also very happy that even though I am not, again, what can I say? It's not my biggest cup of tea. I don't know how much our students, our subscribers at Root Source will be interested in this, but it's something that we're gonna check out. We'll see how it goes. I hope that in our next meeting you'll be able to bring some short videos that we'll be able to share, so that people not only be able to hear da 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 da, but actual the kind of stuff that you're talking about.
Well, you speak very well, Gidon. I mean, that's very well said, and it's just a joy for me to do this. And in fact, as I was saying about the jazz, it really helped me with jazz, but I teach it to kids. I mean, we started a sixth grade girls music club at the Margolin Hebrew Academy to show them how to do it. And I don't teach them jazz, of course, but I show them you could compose a song, you could write something, you could put lyrics to it, and just start with 4 notes. And it's less intimidating than a whole piano keyboard. So the applications for anybody to just take melodies, and listen, if you listen to Bach, you can start hearing these 4 notes going. It starts to open up the language of music. And to your point about Jewish music, I mean, the flourishing of Jewish music today is so incredible. And you hear the reggae sounds, you hear the rock sounds, you hear Hasidic rock music on the Naki radio. I mean, I love it. So and it's a good point about Judaism is that we're very committed, and I'll say this about Orthodox Judaism, we're very committed to our Masorah and Halacha, but Judaism always has a synthesizing principle. We look around the world and we say, well, what is right out there? What is not dangerous to us, but smart and good? And this was Rambam, Maimonides' great thing, is he said, what is smart about Aristotle? Let me take a look. And he said, hey, this guy was brilliant. He's not a Navi. He's not a prophet. He's not one of our prophets. He doesn't teach us halacha, but he teaches us about organizing thought and philosophy and all these things. So we do look around and say, what is working? I know we're coming up to 8:30. Wanted to see what
that's beautiful. You just mentioned Masorah and halacha. Masorah means our traditions, and halacha is our rules, our laws. And those are bemet, 2 things that really specify Orthodox Judaism in a beautiful way. Thank you very much for that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think those are the 2 things we have to balance in intention: is commitment to our tradition and looking out to the world and see what else is good and true out there.
Yes, and that is that tension is something that people jump on all the time. And where are you on that? Tradition, yet pushing the envelope, as it was. Beautiful.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I don't know if we're going to keep on recording once a week. Next week for sure, I'm taking off a 2-week vacation of my thing. So we've recorded a few more people also. As a matter of fact, another 15 minutes I'm recording somebody else. So I don't know when this is going to be played, but we'll be in touch by WhatsApp, and we'll set up something for probably Monday in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, but we'll be in touch. This has been very beautiful, and thanks a lot for that guitar.
Welcome.
And prepare for the next time. Bring something on YouTube so that we'll be able to show it and listen to it.
I'll leave you, Gidon. I want to thank you and thank your audience for having me. I want to leave you with sort of a 4th of July American thing. I was playing some jazz, but I'd like to play a little. Little Chuck Berry for you.
Yeah, a little bit. You're saying Chuck Berry. I'm thinking Back to the Future.
That's exactly right. Perfect. That's exactly what it is.
And that's really what spirituality is, to go back to the future.
Ooh, wow. We're gonna have to think on that. That was very good. Gidon. Oh, I love that.
Okay.
We'll have to go with that next time.
I'll leave you